Hello, welcome to the Cricketers Playbook podcast. I'm your host, Tim Williams. We are here to take a look at the world of cricket with Australia retaining the Frank Worrell Trophy. India squaring it up with England into the Proteas skipper, Wiaan Mulder, knocking out one of the highest scores of all time, prematurely declaring on himself and costing himself the potential world record. Here to talk that with me, as always, Cricket Australia commentator Max Bryden. Maxie.
G'day, Timothy. I'm well, mate. I've been sleeping pretty well. I'll give you three reasons. First one is because Mitchell Starc opens the bowling for Australia. Second is because Josh Hazlewood takes the ball from the other end. And the third reason why I sleep so well is because Pat Cummins comes on first change, mate. This cartel, geez, they make life a lot more comfortable for Aussie cricket fans.
They do, mate, and they also ensure that tests are very short. So there hasn't been too much staying up overnight for day 4 and day 5 at the moment. Also with us today, the man with the best stats in sport, Random Stats guy, Rando. How are you, mate?
It's been a great week, particularly for stats. I mean, Shubman Gill with all his scores, Wiaan Mulder last night as well. Just tons of stats getting knocked over, which we love to see.
There has been a tremendous amount of records in the past week, mate. Your page going off tap, you'd be in heaven.
It's been, I mean, never short of content, thankfully. Never short of content, just constantly getting updated.
Guys, on today's show, we will have a look at the second test between Australia and the West Indies. The tourists getting home again to clinch the series, but the opening headaches, they have intensified for the Aussies. We're looking at the options for those spots leading into the Ashes series. We're going to look at England versus India. India getting their 20 wickets minus Jasprit Bumrah. Shubman Gill, he breaks all sorts of records in the process there. South African skipper Wiaan Mulder belting 367 not out against Zimbabwe, then declaring on himself. Our thoughts on that selfless decision. Then we'll have a look at the Aussies in action across the world. Xavier Bartlett, Matty Short and Riley Meredith. They're doing big things on the world stage. But fellas, let's start with the Australia versus West Indies second test. The Aussies getting home by 133 runs. Webster, Carey, Green, Smith all hitting half centuries in this run. Brandon King, the only major resistance with the bat for the host, with 75 in the first innings. Gaz Lyon found himself back in the wicket, 6 scalps to his name. But on the negative side, Sam Konstas, Usman Khawaja, just 43 runs between them for the test match. Maxie, you sort of said last week that Sammy Konstas was locked for the Ashes. Curious to know if this has changed in your mind, because in my mind, I won't say it's changed because I didn't think he was locked, but if he comes out in the third test and gets 2 single-digit scores, he's a long way from being locked at the top of the order. Yeah,
and I think there's 2 ways to look at this. One is that we've essentially got a project player who's going to be the future of Australian cricket, and in particular, this format of the game, a guy that is, if good enough, right, like he's going to be doing this job for the next 15 years. And as such, patience is what we need to call for. But the facts are, if he's not able to get runs in this next test, then he's not slamming that door shut on the contenders to potentially take his position. I think the important thing to keep in mind here is just the context, right? Like, we're not talking about a match like we saw over in England where teams are scoring 600 or 700 runs and records being broken, right? These are difficult conditions to bat in, and as evidenced by really good batsmen in the Australian team also struggling, like Usman Khawaja, who's going to go down as one of our better opening bats in the last couple of decades. But it's just unfortunate that our Special K hasn't really done the business. So, I don't know if he is necessarily as locked as I thought he was last week for that test team, but geez, he's still got that other opportunity in the third test, so hopefully he can get it done.
But I feel like you've dropped like a bit of a blanket statement a few times of, he's this project and he'll be the Australian opener for the next 10, 15 years. The reality is he's a 19-year-old who hit a 60 on Boxing Day. Outside of that, there was a couple of shield tons, sure, that's great, but failure after failure after failure, like we hope he is, and he's obviously got the ability, but whether or not he can put that all together. And put it this way, we've seen many great Australian batsmen over the years who have started slow and they have been dropped from the test team and then they've been recalled later on and maybe they do sort of hit their straps at 21 or 22, but I feel like there's a lot of ambition and excitement in you saying for the next 15 years, but he's got to do a lot more than he does.
I think the innings that people are probably forgetting here was the 100 against India as well, that he got down in Monaco in a pink ball game down there. Won't necessarily show up in the stats because it was an invitational game, but that was a really rock solid performance. But the major thing, the problem with Sam Konstas is the problem that's facing Australian cricket. If it's not him, then who? There's not necessarily the people behind him in the pecking order demanding selection. So why not give it to the kid who, throughout the pathways, wherever he has gone, has broken records at every single level with his run scoring.
Yep.
And I'm talking like all the way down to the first grade system within Sydney. The people who make it to the top and dominate the test arena are the guys who have the careers like he has had in junior cricket. What he did in junior cricket has never been seen before. So I've got no doubt that he has the talent. It's just disappointing, as I said, that for me he hasn't shut the door on those people pushing up. But look, I think it's really important to keep in mind the context of trying to bat in the West Indies, right? And you spoke about people needing to get dropped. He's already been dropped. They went straight to Sri Lanka after the Aussie summer, and he wasn't there in the team. He wasn't in the team for the World Test Championship either. So he's been parachuted in here at the start of a new test cycle to say, Sammy, show us what you can do. These are conditions he's never batted in before. He's going to come home into Australia and bat in entirely different conditions again. So does he need to make runs at the start of the Shield season to lock it in? Yeah, absolutely he does. But at the moment, I don't think what he's doing wrong is enough to count against him, as it might if there were other contenders pushing up behind him.
Yeah, no, that's it, mate. And as I said, like I've got all the faith in the world in him long term. I just, looking ahead to the Ashes at the end of the year, I need to see something before he opens the batting for us against the Poms for 5 tests. Rando, how do you feel about it, mate? Like we did touch on it last week, but 2 failures again, it does change things. Needs to be runs. You're sort of a bit more in Maxie's park of, just stick by and give him the time.
Yeah, I think it's a big stick by and give him the time. I mean, you look at the openers from both sides. The West Indies openers didn't do any better either. They scored 47 runs combined, along with the Australia 43 runs combined. Look at Craig Braithwaite, 100-game veteran of the West Indies. He only scored 7 runs in that test match, full stop. So I think you got to give Konstas time. Obviously, the wicket's not working too well for any batters. It seems to be a bowler's path at the moment. So I don't mind giving the kid a couple of games just to get into that sort of mood, because even the coach Alex McDonald said that it's going to be tough. It's irrelevant what's happening on the West Indies at the moment. They've also got plenty of fixtures for him to warm up before the Ashes. You mentioned the Sheffield Shield. You've got Australia A playing a few games against India as well in some warm-up matches. So there's plenty of time for him to get ready for the Australian conditions, which he obviously is home to him. So I'm okay with him just tapping away. I mean, you're telling me Marcus Harris minus Labuschagne could do better for the West Indies tourism than Sammy Konstas? You're kidding me.
That might be why he's there.
That could be the only reason.
It's probably worth it.
But yeah, in that sense, his stock's going up. But I think just the more innings he gets under his belt, the better he'll be.
So, Maxie, which leads us to the question of, all right, if not Sam Konstas, then who? And, your point's relevant. Someone needs to be hitting runs to put pressure on that spot. Because if none of the top contenders for the opening spot for Australia aren't putting up runs come the start of the Sheffield Shield season, well, you do just stick with him. He's like, well, no point dropping him for something that's going to make no difference. We may as well invest in him early. That's going to lead to a shootout at the start of the Sheffield Shield season. I do think, for the record, if Sammy Konstas can come out and hit runs in the 3rd test, and if he can hit a ton or craft his way to a good 70 or 80 on a toughish deck under lights, then he'll go a long way to securing a spot in the first Ashes test at the end of the year. But if he doesn't, we're going to see a lot of these blokes with an opportunity to put their hand up and say, no, pick me, I'll go ton after ton, you have to. A few of these options will be guys like Matty Renshaw, Marcus Harris, Cam Bancroft, Nathan McSweeney, Henry Hunt probably to a lesser degree, and I'll throw a smoky one at you shortly. But of these sort of guys, mate, who are the ones that are the leading contenders in your eyes?
It's a good list, but the scary thing about it is that there's a lot of these guys who have had a chance before, and themselves, they haven't grabbed it.
Numerous chances.
So to Rando's point, if it's not him, then who's going to be boosting tourism over in West Indies? Who's going to be scoring runs out there for the Aussies? We just don't know. And if I have a look at that list, you've got Cam Bancroft. He's still doing the thing. He's opening the batting, but Marcus Harris, he's now turning himself into a middle order batter playing in county cricket. He's not even up there preparing himself for the job of being a future Australian Test opener anymore.
Does that surprise you?
It doesn't surprise me, because what payoff is there for being an opening batsman in Australia? You take the last 24 months as a sample size. We saw Nathan McSweeney parachuted in to open the batting, coming in at batting number 3 and number 4 for his state in South Australia. We had Steve Smith shifted up the order from number 4 to open the batting with no previous opening experience other than in white ball cricket. Heck, World Test Championship just a month ago, they put Marnus Labuschagne up there just to see what could happen. So there isn't a payoff for practicing the craft of opening batting anymore in this country. And of all the names on that list, the guy that I like the most, just because I think he's probably got, like when he's hot, is Matt Renshaw. But people, like, he burst on the scene as this 18, 19-year-old stodgy opening batsman, the turtle. You know, he was the complete foil to David Warner. He scored a test century about the age of 20 at the SCG. But yes, and he went into the wilderness for a very long time. But he himself, for Queensland, he's now primarily batting within the middle order because there's just not the payoff for going out there and doing the tough job in Australian conditions anymore. We've had these weird comments coming from the coach Andrew McDonald and the selectors for the last couple of years that opening batting isn't a specialist job. They just want to find their best 6 batsmen, put them in the team, and then see what happens. But I just don't think that model has proved successful. And I don't think we should be allowing anyone who's serious about putting their hand up to become a contender for the opening positions to bat in the middle order, even if it's what they want.
Renshaw's the one, isn't he? Like, he looks the goods. He always has. Technically sound, powerful hitter of the ball, and he's just the one that you just put it together, mate. And in 2 ODI games, or 50 over list A games, I should say, against Sri Lanka, playing for Australia recently, 106 and 80, both in the last week. He hit a 125 not out in the Shield season earlier on in the year. So he's the one where, with a few big innings early on in the year, as you said, where does he do it though? We need him to do it at the top of the order, not batting at 5 or wherever it might be. So, yeah. Rando, what are your thoughts, mate? Who are the ones who sort of stick out to you that you go, all right, they're going to be on the radar of selectors?
First of all, I want to correct a mistake I made just 5 minutes earlier calling our coach Alex McDonald. I'm wearing a fucking rugby league jersey, if you don't know, so I'm in full Alec McDonald territory. Andrew McDonald is his name.
Yeah, for non-NRL fans out there who are here purely for cricket and not via the SC Playbook NRL channels, Melbourne Storm bench forward Alex McDonald.
Big shit, the Crimson Chin. Anyway, Henry Hunt also seems like a probable option for, and going from your point, Maxi, and players who are opening the batting regularly. Henry Hunt was the top run scorer in the Shield. He ranked 10th all up for runs, but he was still the better option there. So I think he could be potentially a shout too. He's 28 years old too, so he's getting on a little bit, but he's matured. Hasn't played any cricket since the Shield season. Didn't go over to play county or anything, so that might pull him back a little bit. But he's definitely one to consider. And even if Andrew McDonald wants to kind of move batters around and just have 6 batsmen who can just bat, then you could probably put like a Travis Head, maybe start to open him potentially, because you got Josh Inglis who's doing really well too in that lineup as well. So I guess it's kind of moving people around. They trialled Marnus as an opener. That didn't work out too well, but maybe on your home deck it's a different story. I guess it goes back to your famous line on the show, horses for courses. We can look at the West Indies tour and go, he's failing, Sam Konstas, but in reality, it's a completely different deck in Australia. And what we've seen from him in Australia is a lot better, and we know what he can provide there. So I reckon for the instance, it's keeping with Konstas, but I reckon Henry Hunt, he's got to have a fair dinkum looking for this test side. If not, we've got to have to rearrange middle orders to open and find that merry-go-round.
Throw a curly one at you, Maxi. Hopefully it doesn't happen, and there's players putting their hands up all over the shop to open for Australia in the Ashes. But let's say no one does, and Sammy Konstas fails in the West Indies, and there's no runs there, and the spot is wide open. Mitch Marsh, Allan Border medal winner as the best player in Australian cricket just a couple of years ago. He averages 47 in Ashes test matches. He has 3 Ashes centuries. We know that we're not necessarily translating T20 form to test cricket, very, very different formats, but what he did over in the IPL was spectacular. His last 3 knocks there was 67, 117 and 65, among a ton of other runs. He killed it. If no one's getting runs, and I know this leads to more of a reshuffle and who opens bad and whatnot, but what about the big Bison? If Bison comes into some Shield centuries and some big runs early on in the season, is the door shut on Mitch Marsh at test cricket or not?
No one loves the big Bison more than me in this world. Maybe his wife. I'd
Touch
maybe
and go.
take a second of that. But I think I've probably got his parents and his brother covered, but absolutely not. There's no way that I think the Bison has still got the body of work to get through Test cricket, right? Like, you've only got to look at how he went out of the game. It was out of form, but It's a guy that's 33 years old who's played a lot of cricket. His body's been through a lot. Does he have what it takes to get through the rigours, particularly in Australia where conditions are tough? Like our games probably go longer than anywhere else in the world consistently into that fifth day.
He'd only be batting though, right? Like, I mean, like I'm saying we're looking for a batsman.
He would be, but he's still got a field. I think what you're saying goes against what my belief in is that we need to find a specialist. Like we need to start.
But that specialist might not exist, mate.
Well, we got to give guys. We got to challenge guys to become that. Like if Mitch Marsh goes back to Western Australia, gets picked in their red ball team, which I'm not even sure he wants to do anymore. He might just be entering the T20 circuit, playing globally. But if he wants to go back, play Shield cricket, open the batting, and he can do it in that format and score runs, then absolutely, he could be an option. But do I see that happening? I don't.
Yeah.
I think that he's always been that guy who's picked up the mantle of what Adam Gilchrist really started in world cricket, which is a dominant, counter-attacking, late order batsman, number 6, number 7, who can really kick you when you're down.
Yeah.
Like we knew what Gilly used to do was come in and on the shoulders of what the top order had done, just get absolutely mental and really put a hurt on. And that's what Marsh is famous for. I just don't see that happening at the top of the order.
Well, for what it's worth, and it was outside the box thinking, I don't think he will be there, but I'm saying there is, he's got history, he's got runs, he's still a very good cricketer, and he's in form, at least in the short form of the game. I wouldn't be bringing him to open the bat. There would be more reshuffling to accommodate him in that sort of middle to lower order. So
now you sound like Andrew McDonald. That's just. I think the whole point is that we've consistently not seeing the outcomes of this belief that they've tried to tell the public that your best batters can bat anywhere in the lineup, and your batting in the lineup is just a number. And look, maybe once the next generation of Aussie batters come in, it'll prove true. Like you only got to look at Usman Khawaja. Yes, you might think he's going amazingly, but if you take out that 230 he scored against Sri Lanka at the moment, his average in the last 2 years was in the 20s. Like he's been great, but he's also old as sin and his eyes are going. So we really need, if we get the next young batter, maybe it's Cam Green. Maybe Cam Green finds his spot at the top of the order. We don't know, but the bigger problem is it's not just the openers, but we're going. It's not even just Konstas. We're going to need to find 2 of these guys very soon.
And just to get on that list as well, you had Bancroft and Harris. Harris. He opened the batting for Australia in the home Ashes in 2021-2022. He averaged 29, one score over 50, and that was his 76 high score. Then you had Bancroft, who averaged 25 in 5 tests in the Ashes in that 2017-18 series with just one score over 50 as well. So those 2 have had their chance as well in Ashes at home, haven't been able to provide the runs that Australia have been looking for. So I'm sure that past history is also dwelling in the stats when Andrew McDonald looks at it. If
you could give me pre-series and say, we'll give you an Aussie opener that's going to average 29 through the series opening that, I'd nearly take it. Seriously.
Jeez.
All right, guys, moving on to the England versus India recap, and the records tumbled here. India thrashing England by 336 runs. They got their 20 wickets without Jasprit Bumrah on an absolute road. So good signs for them. Akashdeep, 10 wickets for the game. Mohammad Siraj, 7. Harry Brook, he hit 158. Keeper, Jamie Smith, 184 not out and an 88. Skipper, Shubman Gill, belting scores of 269 and 161. I've got a few records here, but Rando, I might throw it straight over to you, mate. What are some of the best out of this one?
There was plenty to look at here. We'll start with Akashdeep. We were talking on the podcast in the preview, how are the Indians going to get 20 wickets minus Bumrah? Well, the person you least expected to, Akashdeep, flown into this side. Now, if you don't remember him, he did play in 2 tests against Australia earlier on this summer. He only took 4 wickets, and I think we were saying in the green room his average for that was about 50 here. He's now become the second Indian ever to take 10 for in England. The first since Chetan Sharma, who also did it in Edgbaston in 1986. So that was quite an incredible feat. You talk about Jamie Smith in a losing team. He scored 272 runs across the test match. It's the 3rd most by a wicketkeeper in a test as well. Only Andy Flower is ahead of him with higher aggregations. And then, of course, the great Shubman Gill. Most runs by an Indian batsman in a test match, and the first one to score a 200 and a 150 in the same test as well. So incredible stats that came to fall there. And the victory by India was their biggest win by runs away from home, beating their previous record of 318 run victory against the Windies in North Sound back in 2018. So,
Wow.
so many records dropping there, particularly India, who I thought I would have put the house on England in this second test, and they've come out and pulled off one of the great bounce back performances to get the win here.
Let's talk, Maxie, about Shubman Gill. As we said, 269 and 161. What a phenomenal performance from the Indian skipper.
It was absolutely amazing. The list of records, Rando's just been through, it's incredible. The one that really stood out to me was he lifted his entire batting average by 7 runs just in one game. He went from 35 to 42.
Wow.
I think what I love most about him is that for a while he's been the anointed one. He's been the prince, right? Like he's been the man who has been long touted as probably the heir to the likes of Virat, to Rohit. The guy's going to come in and become that next generational superstar. But there's been a lot of question marks about him. He's been in and out of the team. He's really proven in other formats, particularly white ball cricket, that he was a player of substance. But what he's done in his 2 test matches so far as skipper has been nothing short of incredible. We spoke a little bit about the vibe of the Indian cricket team now post-Virat, this era, right? Like they've had 3 of the biggest players ever in Indian cricket retire in quick succession in Ravi Ashwin, Virat Kohli and Rohit Sharma. And just the shadow that's allowed players to emerge from, he has absolutely stood head and shoulders above the player that we thought he was coming in here, taking the captaincy. So fantastic effort. What a star. I really think now that particularly with the opportunity for Jasprit Bumrah to come back in for the 3rd test of this series, England are smoky here for an away series result.
Yeah, it set up the series just brilliantly, 1-1 going into the 3rd test. One thing that has probably, I shouldn't say backfired, it certainly backfired in the 2nd test, Maxie, but a tremendous amount of runs scored. Bazball, they want their flat decks. That's what Bazball works on, this ultra-aggressive brand of cricket. But I said it did backfire in this one. It's probably not going to help them leading into a national series at the end of the year. Now, obviously, Aussie-centric, that's what we're looking at. They're sitting there going, we've got a huge series against India. We need to win that first, and whatever decks we can do that on, we need the one that suits us best. But, I mean, it backfired in this, didn't it?
It did, and I think that's what you're going to get with this high-risk brand of cricket. I think the most interesting part, particularly that England first innings, was that they were in even more curry than they were in this game. They lost by so much, but they were 5 for 84 before Harry Brook and Jamie Smith came together and just did what they do, which is score a lot of runs and score them very quickly. But you take away those 2 guys and their performance, and Rando, you just mentioned the complete performance from Jamie Smith as well, and they weren't even close in this game. Such is the risk-taking nature of this side. The England team, for all of the talk, for all the pomp and pageantry of this team, they've still got a lot of question marks over their side, and particularly the batting unit that's going to come down to Australia. Like Zach Crawley's, he's not shown that he's up to Test match cricket. Ben Duckett, he's arguably the most informed cricketer in the world at the moment, particularly in all 3 formats, but his type of game, I don't know if it's necessarily going to suit coming down here to Australia because he plays so square of the wicket with extra bounce here. I think that's just really opening him up to dismissals to balls that typically he would be hitting to the fence. Even Ollie Pope, Ollie Pope's got, I think, a record we spoke about, potentially the most test centuries by an England number 3 with 8 or so. But his spot is also under pressure from the young fella who came out here during the BBL last year and played for the Melbourne Renegades. Name escapes me at the moment. But they're not settled.
Jacob Beathall?
Yeah, Jacob Beathall. So they're at the moment, they're a bit unsettled. But the thing is that despite what everyone looks at from the outside, they're so persistent with sticking to this identity that it makes a great comedy, which I love.
Great for podcasters like us, Bazball. Rando, what's your take on it?
Yeah, I think one of the interesting articles that came out about how India were able to, I guess, kind of conquer Bazball was how well they used the new ball. They took 10 wickets for 243 runs with that first new ball in both innings, compared to England, who had 93 overs with 2 new balls, and they only managed 8 wickets. The big one was the false shots that India were able to create off the back of the new ball. They created, out of the deliveries they bowled, 20% of those deliveries forced false shots there for England, where the English basically didn't know how to play them, compared to 15% for the English when they had the new ball against India too. So I think they just absolutely bamboozled them. It was great strategy there from India, because you look on paper, nothing much changed from their bowling attack at all. In fact, it definitely weakened without Bumrah there. So just the way they were able to manipulate it there made it very tough for the Bazball rhetoric to stick. But then you see Jamie Smith and Harry Brook do what they did. You can't tell me that Bazball isn't completely broken and defeated, because they're still able to get runs in that respect there. And Jamie Smith, third most runs by a wicketkeeper in a test. It's crazy, and in a losing team as well. So we'll see plenty of that for tests to come. But an enthralling test there at Edgbaston.
An absolute cracking series set up heading into the third test, boys. We move over to the South Africa and the Zimbabwe series. South African skipper Wiaan Mulder, a triple century. He blasted 367 not out of 334 balls, which is just absurd. He declared in that first innings at 5 for 626. He surpassed Graham Dowling's 239 against India in 1968 as the highest test score on debut as a skipper. Other notable ones on that, Shivnarine Chandapur, the West Indian, 203 not out, and Joe Root, 190. Likely, you would imagine, the way he was ticking on, could have gone on and surpassed Brian Lara's world record 401 runs. He finished with the 5th highest score of all time. Selfishly, though, he declared to honour the greats of the past. And he was quoted after saying, "I think respecting the game is really important, letting someone like Lara keep his record. He's one of the greatest to have played the game, so he deserves that. You never know what's my fate or what is destined for me, but I think Brian Lara keeping that record is exactly the way it should be." Maxi, good call or bad call?
It's a shocker. I think, probably like most people, you learned about this record from opening up Instagram and you were seeing the scorecard, you were seeing the quotes. My first reaction was wow, they must have been on 800 runs. They must have been on 900 runs. They must have been batting for 3 days, right? For him to establish that context of this record, essentially what he's saying is it wouldn't have felt right to do this against a team who don't play much Test cricket in Zimbabwe, right? That's reading between the lines of what he said. But when you actually look at the context of this game and the scorecard, they were only 114 overs into their first innings, right? So they were basically a day and a half into a Test match. There was plenty of time. There still is plenty of time in this match for them to take the 20 wickets. And you look at the rest of the team, right? And you go, well, surely, he must have a partner there. He's ticking along at 150 or going at a good clip. No, next highest score, 82, then there's a 78. Apart from that, the next highest after that is 42, which was his current batting partner in Kyle Verreynne.
Yeah.
So it's not like it was this impossibly flat pitch that all of his teammates were going out there and scoring runs easily against this bowling attack. Wiaan Mulder's out there having the ultimate day out of all day outs. And for some reason, he's just decided to pull the pin on himself. Now, I don't know if he thought that maybe it was worse to go for it and not get there, and he just got a little bit nervous. They always talk about the nervous 360s. But, I think he's just completely made the wrong call there. I would have loved to have woken up to an actual world record and not just the myth of what could have been.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like I said, the context of the game, he said if it was an absolute road where everyone was getting runs, it kind of put a bit of a blemish on it, and then you asked the question, but they weren't. So it's a great point. Rando, what about you?
For me, it's a tough one because we have seen etiquette in the past. I think it was David Warner, wasn't it, at the SCG, who pulled up at the same score as...
He went past.
Did he go past it? I thought he equalled it.
335 from David Warner.
So wasn't it the same as Don Bradman, out of respect?
So Mark Taylor declared on the 334.
Sorry, yeah.
Michael Clark, I was at it, he's 329. He pulled stumps before it.
Yeah.
Davey Warner went a run or two more. So.
Apologies, Davey Warner. I've got that wrong. Michael Clark was probably who I was thinking of. But you've seen other players, I guess, in respect to past champions and just holding off the record there. sure Matthew Hayden would have had a fucking crack at it. You reckon? Well, 380 at the time.
380
was the highest.
against Zimbabwe.
And he got out as well. So it wasn't.
He was having a crack.
He was having a crack. So yeah, it was just. I don't know. I guess he will always have it held on him that it was always against Zimbabwe. Because he can't bring that up there. I scored the highest test score and someone's just going to be like, it was against Zimbabwe, mate, chill out. I think he could have gotten closer to it. Like another 5 overs, maybe edge your way to 399 or 390.
Second.
At least put yourself in a second. He's fallen bloody 3 short of that. So
I think that's a really good point. It feels like if he's serious about trying to pay respect, just declare 1 run short, mate.
Yeah, exactly.
Like I don't quite understand it. Again, maybe that's why I'm not a professional cricketer. I'm just sitting here talking about it. But yeah, he's had a shocker.
Yeah. Second most runs as well in a day. The South Africa did there. Crazy.
I mean, fully respect the play for sure to do it, and then like obviously the influence on Brian Lara to him and paying the respects to Brian Lara. But I think it's a little bit different when like you have Clarkey and Tubby Taylor doing it to a compatriot in Don Bradman and the greatest to ever play the game. But I think just because Mulder is from a different nation, it's like if it was one of your own, I'd be like, oh, okay, that's awesome. But it's like, mate, he's West Indian. I'm like, you're South African, go for it.
Yeah.
Like, give the mantle to South Africa. So no, I certainly respect it, but it's like, actually, I think he could have at least got to second.
Yeah.
Get to second.
Get to second. That's what I was very confused about. He pulled up very short.
Anyway, boys, moving on to part 2 of the show, the World Team of the Week. Have a look at some of the best performers across world cricket. We'll start with the Aussies in action. And Maxie, there are a few who did some good things.
There were. We know first and foremost about the test match over in Grenada there with Steve Smith scoring 71, Alex Carey, man of the match with 63. Matt Renshaw, as you mentioned before, he's having a day out so far, well, tournament out, you might say, against Sri Lanka A for Australia A. 2 list day games there, 50 over format. He scored an 80 in the first one, a big win for the Aussies. And then in the second game, which they lost, he scored 106 there in a chasing side. So he's in good form. Nathan McSweeney also hit 85 in that game. Sam Elliott, young quick from Victoria, son of Matthew, he burst onto the scene last year at the start of the list day competition with like a 7-for at Junction Oval. He got 5 for 14 in that series, so he's doing well.
And just to say, not Canberra Raiders coach related, Matthew Elliott.
No, different relative there.
That would be impressive.
That would be very impressive. Go on.
You are on one today, Rando. Over in international tournaments at the moment, a few domestic T20 tournaments around the globe. Darcy Short, just delisted by Western Australia, but it hasn't stopped him from hitting 83 or 48 for Gloucester against Middlesex. Matt Short, he's having a really great tournament for the San Francisco Unicorns, of course, big name team in the Major League Cricket.
Carnicorns.
He hit 80 off 63 and he's now the 3rd leading run scorer in that competition. Want to draw your attention to 2 quicks, however, not necessarily amazing performances, but just really good consistency so far. The first one, Xavier Bartlett. He is equal leading wicket taker so far in Major League Cricket. I think he's got a really big future opening the bowling in white ball cricket for Australia, potentially red ball as well. And Riley Meredith, one of my favourite Taswegians, he is the 2nd leading wicket taker over in the Vitality Blast at the moment. And shout out as well to Nathan McAndrew, who is in 4th. So the quicks at the moment, the stocks are rising in the domestic scenes for the Aussies.
We don't bloody need quicks, mate. We need everything else.
I agree.
We will in a few years, but right now, quicks is not what we need. But yeah, still some good things there. What about around the world, Rando? To be honest, we probably touched on most of them because they all came across. It was essentially the England versus India test. Who else has done good stuff?
Yeah, I mean, we basically touched on all of them around the world here. I was looking into the Bangladesh series at the moment. Nothing too big going on over there. So, yeah, Wiaan Mulder, 367 not out. He was definitely one of the top performers. I mean, it's hard to tell between him and Shubman Gill. I guess Gill up against a tougher opponent in England, breaking all those records with his 269 and 161. Jamie Smith, 184, and Harry Brook, 158, other 2 top performers. And Akashdeep, of course, taking the 2nd ever 10-for for an India in England was nothing short of remarkable there. But I did want to touch on some more Aussies. The Aussie women are still having a crack in the Vitality Blast as well. Heather Graham, not of Hangover stripper fame, but the other one. Sorry, that's a niche reference. She's an actress. Maddie got it. I got to laugh at it, Maddie. That's all that matters. She scored 73 off 47 balls for the Blaze this week. She was actually caught and bowled by Elise Perry. Speaking of Elise Perry, she scored 40 in her first game of the Vitality Blast to win the game for Hampshire. A great chase there. And Laura Harris as well. She's topping the Vitality Blast for strike rate at the moment. She's seen them at 196 in 10 innings, which is quite impressive, almost 2 runs a ball.
Very good, mate. I'll throw in one as well for the week. The 14-year-old Indian prodigy, Vaibhav Suryavanshi, playing over in the India under-19s versus England under-19s series in the UK, 143 off 78 deliveries. That is a 50-over fixture. Even just his scores across this series. Again, 14 years old. He's gone 33, 143, 86, 45, 48. 14 years old. It wasn't just a flash in the pan, cut the knocks in the IPL. Unbelievable. I cannot wait to follow him.
Light work for him.
Light work, yeah.
Light work.
Anyway.
10 sixes, chill. Very chill.
That'll do us, boys. Good comprehensive wrap today. I think we might sit next week out. There'll be a gap between the Australia and West Indies test matches. So might sit out next week and come back 2 weeks later, Maxie. What do you reckon?
Yeah, mate, could be good. I know that if anyone wants my opinions about that West Indies cricket, please just find my number and text me because I'm sure I'll have them.
There'll be a bit going on there, mate. You'll have a bit for us.
Yeah, you'll have plenty.
Rando, thank you, mate.
I just need to dial down on the rugby league, I guess. Just really need to dial down on the rugby league and the hangover quotes.
All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back in 2 weeks' time.